The 2020 NBA season was shaping up to have possibly one of the most competitive endings and one of the more interesting endings that we've seen to a season in possibly a handful of years. In fact, the Western Conference of the NBA was so competitive that we were every team was about 63, 64 games into their season, and only one team in the West had clinched a playoff spot with less than 20 games to go, and that was the Los Angeles Lakers. Every single team except for one, if the playoffs were to start today, every single team but one in the Western Conference would have at least 40 wins with less than 70 games played. I think that's a pretty remarkable feat for just the Western Conference in general, and it's not like the Eastern Conference did awful either. The Philadelphia 76ers are the 6th seed currently, and they are 39-26. I'd say that's a pretty strong record for a number 6 seed. However, the ending to this possible competitive season has been put to the side for a little bit due to this coronavirus situation. And now with talks of the NBA season resuming, whether it be with a few play games like round robin before any sort of playoffs, or whether it's jumping straight into the playoffs, there are a few guys that I kind of wonder about whether or not, if playing out this season, if they were to play out this season and win themselves a championship, how would that really affect the way we view their career and their legacy? The biggest basketball spectacle of the past about month and a half has been the Last Dance documentary about Michael Jordan and the 90s Bulls. So it seems like more than ever, anybody is willing to jump on the bandwagon of MJ being the GOAT. And a lot of the reasoning people cling to that notion is because of his rings, because he went 6-0 in the finals. And I'm not necessarily worried about someone having an undefeated record in the finals, going 6-0, whatever they go. I'm more necessarily worried about a guy who is winning his first championship, and it comes in a season that is diminished or shortened because of this coronavirus situation, and how many people start looking at their career afterwards because of this shortened season and them winning a championship during it. I even look at guys like LeBron James, who he's 3-5 in the finals, and let's even just say that LeBron were to match Jordan's rings. Let's say he were to win the next 3 championships, including this season. That would not make it one NBA championship that he won during a shortened season. That would be his second ring in a shortened season. If you remember his first ring in 2011 against the Thunder, they only played about 60 games because of the NBA lockout. They didn't start until around Christmas time. And while that probably isn't a problem, having 2 of his rings come in a shortened season, that might not be a problem to you, it might not be a problem to me, but there's a good portion of people out there that would try to diminish his legacy because of those 2 rings alone. And it's not to say that I don't disagree with that notion, I just don't take it as far as to say LeBron's legacy would be diminished if that were to happen. I would understand the argument about how 2 rings in diminished or shortened seasons would somewhat affect. A championship is a championship, don't get me wrong, but a championship in a diminished season doesn't hold up the value of someone playing the full 82 games, getting their 16 wins throughout the playoffs. It just doesn't seem to have the same weight. Especially now with where we are on our timeline, we're getting close to being into June, which is around the time when the finals are starting. At this point, we're in the middle of May. We're at the point where the conference semifinals are getting close to ending, or they have already ended, and the conference finals have started already. So if we were to just pluck the 8 teams from each conference, even if we took the 8 teams from each conference, even if it was each 8 teams, it would just be real. It would be a lot different from what we're usually seeing. Not only because of the circumstances, but the style. I'm sure the style of play would be altered due to the fact that none of these guys have had access to facilities for over a month. It even gets even more of a bad situation for LeBron if the Lakers don't make the finals. There's plenty of teams that I could see possibly knocking off the Lakers in the second or third round. You look at teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder, that they'd either have to go through the Jazz or the Oklahoma City Thunder. Then if they make it through those two teams in the Eastern or in the Western Conference Finals, they more than likely would have to make it through the Clippers or the Nuggets. And that even if it's not the Clippers or the Nuggets, the Rockets are a highly competitive team with they're a top-heavy team, but they're very competitive, and they know how to win with their style of play. The Dallas Mavericks are a young, up-and-coming team with Porzingis and Doncic. And even the Grizzlies, I wouldn't really say that the Grizzlies have a chance in the first round against the Lakers, but they could at least take it to 6 or 7. I could easily see that going 6 or 7 games just off of how they play and how they revolve around Ja Morant and how they've been able to establish themselves as one of the new good teams of the Western Conference. So yeah, this situation gets even worse for someone like LeBron if he loses in the second or third round, because now people are going to say, well, LeBron had a month or so off from basketball, he should have been completely rested. They would never dare give him the same leeway that they would give the teams that he beat, when they would say, oh, well, the teams LeBron beats, they're not prepared basketball-wise. They would never dare give LeBron that excuse if he were to lose in the second and third round. Most of it is just people wanting to hate on LeBron. I mean, this last decade that we saw out of LeBron was possibly the most dominant decade of basketball that we're ever going to see from one specific player. People like to bring up Michael Jordan and his 6 rings, but this decade that we just saw from LeBron, I am willing to put money on it and say that no player ever and no player ever going forward will have the decade that LeBron James just had. So people just want to take away from his legacy. There is somewhat of a factor to that, but also there are some NBA people and people who just talk about basketball in general who would want to say, well, his rings don't match up to Michael's because 2 of them came in diminished seasons, or his rings don't stack up to Kobe, or his rings don't stand up to Shaq or Bill Russell or whoever he gets compared to for the rest of his life. There's going to be people, if he wins a championship this season, if he loses before the finals, even in the finals this year, there's going to be people that are going to diminish his legacy pretty much no matter what happens to him this season. This becomes a situation that gets even murkier when you think about guys who are gunning for their first ring. And if you were to just say, well, if we would just assume that if they were to win a ring this season, that they wouldn't win a ring for the rest of their career, if this was their one true chance at a championship, looking at guys like Giannis or Paul George, or even I'm going to throw Jason Tatum into that conversation, and Nikola Jokic, and even with the Jazz and the Miami Heat, they're both the 4 seed in their side. Guys like Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo with the Heat, and guys in Utah like Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. If this was their one true chance at a championship, this was their one only time that they could win it, and they won it this season, they go the rest of their career without a ring. I think people at the end of their career, if they were to be towards the top of the all-time list at their respected position, there's a chance people could diminish what they did because of them winning a ring in a shortened season. This situation also applies to guys who are in their later years who are still going for their first ring. Guys like CP3 with the Oklahoma City Thunder, guys like Dwight Howard in Los Angeles. He's trying to rewrite his LA story and pretty much his career in general. And I'd say CP3 is trying to do the same, where both of these guys have had multiple stops along their career where they've either succeeded in getting close to winning a championship, Dwight Howard in Orlando and CP3 with Houston, and I would even throw the Clippers in there with CP3. But guys like that who are trying to get their first ring in a storied career, if they were to win their one ring in this season, it's the same situation. I'm going to apply it to the guys I was just talking about. If their one ring comes in this season, people are going to debate whether or not their ring matches up to other guys' championship seasons. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't necessarily have a side. I can see both sides. I can see why that argument is stupid, and I can see why that argument is somewhat plausible. It's somewhat plausible because, like I said, a championship is a championship, a ring is a ring, but going a full 82-game season and getting your full 16 wins throughout a playoffs, I feel like it feels that much better than playing a 60-something game season, playing maybe 1 or 2 rounds in the playoffs and getting your championship. Like, it just seems like it would feel different. However, you can't just fault a player because a full-on pandemic that pretty much stops the whole entire, not just the country, but the entire world. I'm not exactly sure if you can blame that player or diminish his legacy and career because he was put in those certain circumstances. With all that being said, if the NBA were to return and if sports in general really were able to return, I hope that they go some sort of direction in terms of making it seem like it's just not a short season. I know they're kind of going to have to do that because we're at the point where teams are getting ready. Usually at this point we only have 4 or 8 teams left playing. So the rest of the league, over half the league, like 20 teams, are preparing for their offseason, preparing for the draft, preparing for free agency. So a lot of these teams at this point shouldn't even be talked about right now, but because of the circumstances we're in, we have to keep them in the conversation in terms of teams that are in playoff battles and stuff like that. I mean, we really are supposed to only be 5 months away from the next NBA season, and it's possible that doesn't even happen until the 2021 calendar year. So whatever ends up happening, I just hope that the general welfare of all 30 NBA teams is taken into consideration, and I hope that they're able to get through the rest of the season safely, whether that's without fans, whether that's with 20% capacity, or whatever ends up happening. And I really hope that people don't hold it against certain players if they win a ring this season or if they lose in the playoffs. I just really hope that fans and general NBA people that watch the league just don't hold it against certain players for whatever happens in this season, because this has never happened before. We've had NBA lockouts that, somewhat shortened the season, but we've never had this before. So with all of that being said, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day or night whenever you're watching this. If you like the video, make sure you hit the like button. If you didn't like the video, make sure you hit the dislike button. Any feedback really at this point is much appreciated. If there's anything that you think I forgot to talk about, make sure you leave a comment down below. I try to get back to as many comments as possible. And again, I hope you have a good rest of your day or night. Make sure you subscribe if you like watching my videos. I try to put out as much content as possible. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.